This is a story about renewal. Companies that have known great success but face changing tastes and changing markets. Companies that have to rethink what they're doing to find success. Some do it well.
Apparel company New Balance really continuing to expand the U.S. manufacturing presence.
And some get it wrong.
A pair of finance veterans bought the bankrupt car rental company Hertz in 2021 and went all in on electric, and it turned out to be a bad bet.
It was not long ago that New Balance was known for the ultimate dad sneaker.
What happened to your feet?
What do you mean? These are my 407s.
Oh, they're 407s. Can I see them?
Yeah. These offer a lot of support.
Right.
Whoa, come on!
And now it's a shoe worn by celebrities and runway models. Joe Preston is the CEO who's overseen the latest transformation of a company dating back to 1906.
New Balance was the first athletic brand to have an NBA player with $1 million contract. By the time the late 80s came along, New Balance was struggling. All of our competitors had moved all of their production from the US over to Asia, and that in part put us at a little bit of a competitive disadvantage. And then in the early 90s, we retracted and just focused on running. We wanted to make sure that we could carve out a positioning with that new strategy. But then around 2008, 2009, we knew we needed to get younger. We knew we needed to get back into sport, and we made an entry into baseball. And we set this lofty goal of being #1 in baseball within 5 years. And in the beginning, there was a lot of doubt internally as to whether or not we could do that.
It wasn't a straight ride up as New Balance went through its transition. Its global sales fell from an estimated $4.5 billion in 2018, that's the year Preston took over, down to some $3.4 billion in 2020. But then they took off, hitting $7.8 billion last year, an approximate 73% increase under Preston's leadership. What caused you to have a couple of years that were challenged?
I wouldn't say we were going south, we were going sideways. We had a rapid growth that was happening internationally, specifically in North Asia and in Europe, and then that had flatlined. And we were not able to take truly advantage of the brand here in North America. And so we reset in 2019 to try to put the company in position for growth. And then obviously COVID hit, which kind of stalled things a little bit. But we could see in the back half of 2020 that the brand was beginning to resonate, and we've been able to grow 20+% for 4 consecutive years.
There's 3 key traps that I think are key to understanding why some firms are better situated to reinvent themselves.
Ryan Raffaelli is a Harvard Business School professor who teaches corporate reinvention.
The first trap is the trap that I call the identity trap. And this is too tightly coupling the questions around who we are with a very specific product or service. And so we get so tied to one product or service that we sort of lose sight of everything else around us. The second trap is one that I call the architecture trap. And this is where we think about you have different products and services on an S-curve, sort of at different phases of maturity. And what often happens is in organizations is they're designed where all the same systems and structures and incentives are applied to early stage innovations versus processes of innovation that may be needed for later stage, more mature products. And this can often kill out the early stage. There's a third trap, the collaboration trap. And this is a trap where what you see is that individuals tasked with innovation at different phases of an S-curve often begin to either not trust each other, and you get this internal resentment that can often kill off innovation for reinvention that has to happen for the future.
New Balance successfully skirted those 3 traps, leading to a revamp that's allowed the company to expand its footprint, sponsoring both the New York City and London marathons and hosting athletic events at their own Boston track.
Today will mark the opening of the New Balance Nationals. We'll have 6,000 of the best track and field high school athletes in the country that come to campus here and come to this brand new facility.
But is this a revenue raiser for you? How does this work? Not really.
No, this is you know, this is an opportunity for us to engage with these young athletes.
And the athletes are engaging back. Coco Gauff, Kawhi Leonard, Bukayo Saka, and perhaps the biggest of them all, Shohei Ohtani, all New Balance athletes.
This is all of Shohei's collection. You can also see those are his signature cleats.
Samantha Siciliano is the lead athlete insights researcher at New Balance.
The collaboration with the athletes is key for us. We learn so much from them, and it's stuff that we can use for all of our pros, but it's also things that we can use for our community athletes and make sure that those athletes are getting the best product possible.
The reason why that we can enter into these sports is twofold. One of them is that our product engine is just so strong. The investment that we make continually into product and innovation, and through our sports research center, we can go in and test any different type of product for any of those sports. And the other element is, as the brand is becoming more widely known, we have athletes coming to us from these various sports looking to be part of the brand.
As you evolve the company, how do you retain some of the basics and at the same time innovate and go into new places? How do you get that balance right?
It is 70-30. 70 meaning making sure we are retaining the culture that we have here because we believe it to be a differentiator. You know, we're a family-owned company. We're privately held, and how we operate is as important as the results. And I think we have strengthened our culture as we have grown. But it's a challenge. You continue to add people as you get larger, and you just want to make sure that people are assimilating and are also contributing to a strong culture that you have.
New Balance's Sports and Innovation Lab is a key part of the company's architecture, giving it a recipe for some of its greatest hits.
This is Andy. He is our walking, sweating mannequin. He is what we can use to determine some of those thermoregulation metrics that I was speaking about. His priority is really looking at insulation and sweat permeability.
All of our performance shoes are tested in the Smash Lab. We test all of our running shoes in the Run Lab that you're going to see next.
In this space, there are 26 cameras. That's going to help us understand every detail about how the runner is moving.
So when we think about technological changes, most firms, we can go back to these classic theories of like the S-curve, right? The idea that you have a technology or a product associated with that. It sort of starts in its infancy, it then starts to move through a period of growth, and then it eventually matures. And so for many firms, they're managing these S-curves within. And what often happens in processes of reinvention is what you tend to see is that for established firms, they don't have the luxury of just managing one of these curves at a time. And so the challenge for them is to try to figure out, well, how do you manage multiple curves with products and services that sit at different phases of those S-curves simultaneously and keep the whole thing running? It's one of the core components, right? Because you're having to think about not only what do you need to do to make yourself successful today and appease your current customer base, but also what's the next thing that will potentially drive growth and revenue in the years ahead.
If New Balance was a company that successfully appealed to both its former and new customer bases, Hertz is far from it.
Hertz has the largest EV rental fleet in North America, charged and ready to go.
Let's go.
The car rental company has gone through countless failed reinventions, most recently making a bold move to replace much of its fleet with Tesla electric vehicles.
We know our corporate travelers want electric vehicles to go visit their clients and do business in. We know our leisure travelers want electric vehicles. It's a great way for them to try electric vehicle without committing.
Let's turn our attention to Hertz. The rental car company misses its estimates as it sells its fleet of Tesla EVs.
The company lost $2.9 billion in 2024 on its failed bet, offloading 30,000 EVs. Its market cap slumping from a peak of $16 billion in 2021 to sit at just over $1 billion today.
The EV strategy actually was suggested by one of the private equity partners who bought Hertz out of bankruptcy, and at the time it seemed like a great idea.
Yale professor Jacob Thomas studied Hertz's failure to reinvent itself time and time again.
Some of the reasons that worked against them, I think one of it was just people didn't know how to drive the cars. They treated them badly. The repair, was much higher than expected. People complained about not finding charging stations and then having to pay Hertz for the cars that were uncharged. The completely unexpected thing that happened is that Tesla facing demand issues and they're worried about the federal tax credit, they lowered the prices of their cars. And so if the new car prices fall, the used car prices fall. Hertz is in trouble because it has to make up the difference. So I think it was just a combination of unexpected things. I think it was worth trying, but in hindsight, it was probably something that's going to cost them a lot.
Ultimately, Thomas believes luck can contribute to a company's reinvention.
I think Hertz has had their share of bad luck. They were doing really well until the pandemic hit. One could argue that the EV strategy was a good one, but it didn't work out.
Luck is about when opportunity meets preparation, and that is the core to reinvention.
The annals of business history are littered with bad luck stories of corporate reinvention. But for the successful few, like New Balance, the ability to strategize, innovate, and execute goes beyond just good luck.
As you look out, what do you examine to figure out this will keep us going as opposed to that one, I'm not sure that's going to get us there?
But we're trying to make sure that the brand is positioned from a premium standpoint. And when you do that, you've got to be cognizant that you can grow, but you got to have controlled growth. So as we look out into the future, trying to maintain a growth rate that we've had the past few years is not the first thing that we're looking at. It's the quality of growth. And so as we look forward, we know that sport continues to be an area that we can develop. Apparel is a big opportunity, but all of it's under this guise of making sure that we are following a distribution strategy, and today we're doing that.